Okay, now sometime back, whenever I was first starting this channel, right about that time, I'd asked a bunch of people if you could run a cheap solar grid tie inverter with a wind turbine. And I got a lot of varied answers, and I tried it anyway. I made a video about it already. I'm going to link to that below. It's been something that I've used, I've liked, it's been successful, but it was no longer, what I had was no longer big enough to handle everything that I was doing. So I have had to expand a little bit. And I made a couple of changes to how I set these things up. To begin with, I only had one of these inverters. Now, just to point out, I'm still kind of setting up a few things here, so it's not all completely tied in, but all the same, I only had one of these inverters. I only had a couple of turbines running off of the bridges and went down to my batteries. Especially whenever the Healy 2.0, which is another turbine I've got coming up, and I've also had a ISTA-BREEZE i1500 running. The i1500 was already overpowering my board to begin with. That Healy is just gonna, break stuff. So I have, started from the beginning. Basically what I've got going on here is these outlets, I have them set up to where each leg and then the ground goes to each leg of a bridge rectifier, so that I can just put a male plug on the end of my turbines, my smaller turbines. I think that with my bigger turbines, I'm gonna have to come up with something different. But not only that, it leaves this other outlet free to where if I need to, I'm gonna make some nicer things like this, but it's just a plug off an old appliance where all three legs are shorted out. That's a break. That shuts down the turbine. If I need to disconnect the turbine, all I've got to do is unplug it. So unplug it. I can put that in there to break it, and that handles that. It comes from my bridge rectifiers. Will come down to my meters over here, which will give me my peaks and everything that I'm normally working off of. Right now, the only turbines that I've had going up were my the good 400 and the 700 watt turbine. And you can see they're already, they've been making power. Not doing so much right now. And it goes from my meters down to these lugs. And I've got two sets of lugs on here so that I can run two separate battery configurations. Hold on, my cat has decided that he has to be outside now. Okay. Goes to my two battery lugs down to my batteries. Now, I am not using these batteries for storage. The only thing that they're doing is helping me regulate voltage before the voltage goes into my grid tie inverters. So I am using cheap old batteries, or actually the little batteries. Those 4 batteries are cheap lawnmower batteries. These are old batteries from cars that no longer started a car. They hold 12 volts and they don't discharge on their own, but they no longer had the cranking amps to start the car. This is not a good way to store power. So if you're storing power, this is not what you want to do. You want to use proper deep cycle batteries. The way these inverters work, if you do this the way I'm doing it, these batteries are all already pretty well shot. They're going to have a hard time holding voltage without, once I take it off the system, they're not going to be good for anything else. These inverters are very hard on batteries. So, not only does it go to those batteries, I will also be able to go from these lugs to whichever inverters I am running. Let's move this cord out of the way. Cord management is probably going to be my biggest pain in the butt. From there, all of my power will come from my grid tie inverters. Let's take this out. To this outlet and this outlet. Each one of these goes to each side. You know, they're not tied together. I don't know how to, you know. One of them goes to one leg, the other one goes to that leg. And then I have a 240 volt outlet over here that goes to both of them, obviously, because I have a setup where I can potentially plug it into that if I ever need to. Then I have this on a proper disconnect. Now my whole building here is on a good fuse breaker, on a breaker disconnect up my well house, but I wanted my fuses out here just to disconnect this system from my breaker box if I ever, you know, something ever happens. So I keep these on a 30 amp fuse right there. Oops. Okay. And then obviously this goes into my breaker box. It's wired into the feeds coming in. Now, one of the things that I've got going on here is I have my new wind turbine grid tie inverter. It is currently running off of my 400 watt turbine. And, you know, the turbine, I got the same setup where it comes to the same little leg here. Each one comes up to each of my legs over there. Then it comes over here to this meter. I'm kind of, I don't think that turbine is going to work for it because as soon as it spools up, the air is out. I think it's too many volts, too high a voltage. So, that's that. Now I'm probably going to have to do a little bit more reconfiguring to get everything on there that I want on there. I am most likely going to have one, possibly two more of those grid tie inverters to handle the wattage that I'm going to have going back when everything peaks. That's another thing, is that most of the time I'm only pulling, you know, a few hundred watts that's dropping back into the grid here. But whenever everything peaks, it's thousands that has to be, you know, dealt with in some fashion. So I have to have, even though my normal operating capacity is pretty low, I have to have a crazy high peak. So anyway, that's that. I will be expanding on this a little bit as things progress. I will, if I have to make changes, I'm definitely going to post videos about that, and as things expand, I'm going to share that. And also, if it catches on fire and puts my shop down, I'm definitely going to film as much of that as I can and share it with everybody. But that's what we're looking at. If you guys have any questions, any comments, anything at all, please post it below. I'd love to answer questions if I can. And if you like this kind of stuff, please subscribe. It helps me out. And you'll get notifications whenever I post new videos. And that's about what I got. Thanks for watching, guys. Y'all have a wonderful day. Stay safe and all that. We'll catch you later.